Unwanted feedback. A man who threatened a school leader over vaccines is warned to stay away from the whole school system. Where politicians live. It's increasingly a target for their opponents, trying to prove that they should be thrown out or voted out for living in the wrong place. Comcast and Altitude meet to discuss ending the 2-year blackout of Avs and Nuggets games. Denver drops its employee vaccine mandate, so 2 fired employees get to come back. And things got steamy around here on a cold day. It's news, hot off the press. Next. School leaders these days are deluged with a lot of heated feedback, sometimes rising to the level of a threat. In Littleton, the superintendent got a straight-up death threat. The man who admitted sending it is now being ordered to stay away from every employee of that school district. 48-year-old Byron Clayton came to court for the first time today, municipal court in Littleton. He's facing a misdemeanor harassment charge. Investigators say he was mad over a vaccine clinic in Littleton Public Schools, and that's why he threatened to inject the superintendent with anthrax. The judge approved a protection order for the superintendent and all other school employees. Clayton's mother told investigators he's an anti-vaxxer and wrapped up in QAnon, the conspiracy theory that global elites eat children. The case is being tried in city court because the penalties for harassment there are actually more stringent than they would be in state court. If he's convicted, Clayton could face nearly a year in jail or a fine as high as $2,600. Squibbles over where politicians live do matter. Because, we just saw a Thornton City Council member booted by her political rivals who said she was spending too much time living in a second home in Alamosa. Well, now it is the State House's Republican Minority Leader, Hugh McKean, address questions. The House Minority Leader is a target of some far-right Republicans who quite correctly point out his voting address is an empty lot. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger goes house hunting.
You do not need a home to register to vote. Those experiencing homelessness can register where they return to regularly, including a vacant lot. Republican State Representative and House Minority Leader Hugh McKean is not homeless, but he's registered to vote at a Loveland address without a home.
This is that address. So why is McKean registered to receive mail-in ballots at a home that doesn't exist?
I changed my driver's license. Well, in Colorado, that means it changes your voter registration too.
McKean, the top Republican at the State House, tells me he's building a home here starting next week. In 2019, a bill that McKean voted against became law and automatically registers someone to vote when they get or renew their driver's license. It also updates voter registration when someone, like McKean, updates their license address. It's known as motor voter registration.
So when I went to get my mailbox key, they said I need to have my driver's license to get my mailbox key, which, because we have motor voter, switched my voter registration to the house where I'm building.
A complaint filed this week by McKean's primary challenger, Austin Hine, questions McKean's Loveland residency.
I believe that someone who's running for office needs to live in the place they're running for office.
Hine is the former communications director for previous Republican House Minority Leader Patrick Neville. He's now the political director for the National Association for Gun Rights, which is connected to Rocky Mountain gun owners. Hine filed an elections complaint saying McKean is registered at an empty lot. He also filed a campaign complaint saying McKean also filed his candidacy paperwork with an address that's really a UPS store P.O. box.
I would like to see where he actually lives in town. And I don't want to really make accusations without proof. All I know is that his residence that he has listed is not likely his residence.
I live in my district, have an apartment at 2950 Mountain Lion Drive, and I share that apartment with my son.
That apartment in this complex is where McKean's voter registration was until it switched in November to a home dressed as a snow-covered lot.
The complaint filed about the candidacy form showing McKean's address as a UPS store P.O. box will be considered for an investigation by the Secretary of State's office. But according to that office, state law requires the candidate affidavit to make sure the candidate understands campaign finance laws. However, state law apparently does not require someone to actually put an address there.
So I feel like this whole thing is like a very good lesson for all of us on how the state's motor voter law works.
Yeah.
That your voting registration address might be changed without your knowledge. But it's laugh out loud funny that that candidate guy, Austin Hines, like, I don't want to make accusations without evidence, without any evidence. Like, what?
It's the campaign finance is going to be investigated. The voter registration, I don't know if that ultimately would come down to the clerk in that area, the city or the county clerk, to be like, I need to verify this is where you live if you're running for this area that's bound by these streets.
Is this is all heading up to like an election mailer to people in Loveland that says Hugh McKean doesn't live here, and then he's going to have to put out a mailer saying Marshall Zellinger fact-checked this BS on TV? Okay, all right, very good. Marshall, thanks for your work. Westminster Fire Department is sorting through what remains of a second home to explode in that community in the last 2 days. This explosion happened at the Stratus Townhomes off Sheridan Boulevard next to Highway 36. 2 people were hurt. It's believed that everybody else who lives there is okay. Second explosion Westminster's seen this week. The other one happened Tuesday morning, less than 2 miles away. And one person is believed to have died in that explosion. Investigators have not suggested any kind of common link between the two. There is more reason to hope for a resolution to the Avs and Nuggets blackout today. Now, note I said more reason to hope, and where we were previously was hopeless, okay? So now we're here. Temper your expectations as Altitude and Comcast start mediation. Altitude has been off of Comcast, the largest provider in the area, since 2019. They are now sitting down to have a conversation about this. Altitude is currently also blacked out on Dish Network. Marshall Fire inspired a critical look at how we notify people about emergencies nearby. Boulder County's faced some criticism for not finishing the setup of a system to send Amber Alert style messages to all cell phones near the Marshall Fire. Those are called wireless emergency alerts. They're part of a federal system. 9 News reporter Steve Steger headed for the Hills, where he found a county that's been using those kinds of messages pretty regularly for years.
Summit County's beauty is both blessing and curse. The blessing obvious.
Our census population's about 30,000.
The curse.
The busiest ski times, we have upwards of 200,000 people in the county.
Ryan Bovaird is Summit County's emergency manager, preparing this beautiful place for the worst possible situations.
That's an overwhelming majority of the population at any time that are not residents. They don't live here.
Part of his job, simply letting people know what's going on, whether they live in the county or not.
In Summit County, we got approved and authorized for access to iPause in 2018.
iPause, Integrated Public Alert and Warning System. It allows local governments to send wireless emergency alerts.
And everybody will commonly be familiar with those because that is the technology that Amber Alerts are sent out.
iPause uses different technology than a call or text message. So if the cell network is overwhelmed by too many calls or your service is bad, it can still reach your phone. Unlike an opt-in system, which runs off a list of contacts who've signed up, iPause should reach all phones in a certain area.
But there's this kind of false understanding in general that it has to be the end of the world before you send out a wireless emergency alert. And that's just not the case. So for iPause,
he's alerted everything from power outages to COVID rules to fire restrictions.
We are in stage 2 fire restrictions, and we had 2 nights of string cheese incident at the amphitheater. We were really worried about people camping and having fires.
The county still uses its opt-in system in tandem with iPause, though Bovaird says they each have their flaws.
It's technology, and it's not perfect. I have never sent out a wireless emergency alert that everyone I talked to afterwards received it. And same thing with the opt-in.
I'm constantly struck with the fact that it's 2022. Does it seem to you like there should be a better way to do this?
You know, that's a good question. And I think we've come a long way. I do think that we're making progress, and I do think that, you know, through experience and technology evolves, I do think we're getting better.
Bovaird told us that each time he uses one of those wireless emergency alerts, he knows that he's going to hear from a handful of community members who think that the situation wasn't serious enough. We talked about those polygons that they can draw to send messages to specific areas. Improvements to that system means those messages are only supposed to bleed over about 500 feet past the geographic line that's drawn. And Bovaird says in the mountains, it bleeds a little bit further.
I think people would be interested in how well it works there, because of course the concern is if it goes too widely, all of a sudden it's like, boom, you've got the entire city of Boulder accidentally evacuating when the fire wasn't a threat to Boulder, just to other communities.
Then you've got roads clogged. That's one of the concerns. But Bavard says what really is key here is being super specific in how you're messaging this out. So if you're going to evacuate an area, you have 360 characters in that alert. You could say, here are the boundaries of the areas that we're evacuating, so people know where they're supposed to get out, and the other people who don't live in that area know, stay put.
Thank you, Steve. Hey, got a call the other day asking for our help. So here's the situation. We know that human trafficking happens in Colorado. People who are here exploited for sex or for labor. I didn't realize until recently that one of Colorado's key nonprofits helping human trafficking survivors had seen a 73% increase in requests for help last year, and they're on pace for even more so far this year. That's why your Word of Thanks microgiving campaign this week will help Voluntad provide those survivors with a new safe start in life. Survivors often escape or are rescued by law enforcement with nothing more than the clothes on their back, and sometimes they're also coming with their children as they seek a safe place to begin life again. Voluntad's experts know what to do in these scenarios. In English and in Spanish, they can help human trafficking survivors and their families, first off, find safe housing. That's most important. And then help them get a job, get mental health support, whatever they need to get by at first, whether that's transportation or childcare, job training for a new safe career. Our donations this week will directly fund those immediate needs of people who have escaped or been rescued from labor and sex trafficking. Scan the QR code on the screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 for that link to donate. We know even $5 helps. As always, I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 to get us going. When human trafficking survivors escape the unimaginable in Colorado, Voluntad, with our help, will be there. They have the understanding and they have the immediate resources that survivors need.
We have hit a positivity milestone. Time for Colorado to party like it's the summer of 2021. Dropping COVID cases are one reason that Denver is dropping its vaccine mandate for city employees. So does that mean that the employees who got fired get their jobs back? And the streets were looking hot and bothered this morning, even in the bitter cold. The reason, next.
City of Denver is lifting its vaccine requirements for city employees next Friday. It was put in place last fall. The city points to the fact that COVID cases have really slowed down, positivity rates dropping. Remember, though, there were city employees who resigned or fired over that mandate. 9 News legal analyst Whitney Traylor says it was 4 employees they could try to sue. He doesn't think it would go anywhere.
Those employees who may have chosen to resign or be terminated instead of getting the vaccine, I don't think that they have recourse, because the reason the mandate was lifted was because, according to the city's press release, was because the numbers are down and everything's evening out. And so they made the medical decision based on where we are. They didn't say we found it unlawful or everything's the same and we just decided to. They said, hey, the numbers got to a place where medically we're comfortable relying on the science at this level, so it's been lifted. So I don't think those employees will have a claim.
Legal challenges to the mandate have not produced a court ruling against it at this point. The City of Denver tells us that any of the 32 city employees terminated for refusing to get vaccinated, they're not eligible to be rehired for 5 years. However, any employees who resigned, they are eligible to be rehired. Hey, congratulations, by the way. Finally got Colorado's 7-day positivity rate back down below 5%. We've been talking about this for a while. It's the first time it's happened since last summer. We're finally back at the level where public health leaders consider the virus's spread to be under control in our community. The group that's suing Denver to preserve the Park Hill Golf Course's open space has just lost in court. Judge ruled today that the group Save Open Space Denver doesn't have standing to sue Mayor Hancock's administration. The city booted the open space off the planning group for the area when they tried to appoint the mayor's former opponent, Lisa Calderon, to take their seat. The group had sued the city, accusing Denver of planning development for one of the last large undeveloped pieces of land in the city, which is protected by a conservation easement. Last November, Denver voters approved an ordinance requiring a citywide vote to have development there. The city is pursuing a plan that will include some open space and some development. Denver voters get the final say.
Douglas County's fired superintendent barely could have unpacked his office before he got a new gig with another one of Colorado's largest districts. And South Broadway was a steaming pile of street this morning. It's like steam coming up from the asphalt. How does something we normally would associate with heat happen when it's so cold? Let's talk science next.
They didn't say he was a bad school superintendent, simply he was insufficiently loyal to them. Fired Douglas County School Superintendent Corey Wise already has a new job with a new district. And the people who fired him from Dougco will keep paying him while he works someplace else. Wise is joining Jeffco Schools as one of its community superintendents. He'll serve in that role through the end of the school year. Wise was fired after a 26-year career in Dougco Schools, which was capped off as 1 year as superintendent. The conservative school board majority got elected, fired him a couple months later, couldn't really come up with a reason during the meeting where they fired him. They later said that he didn't stand up against teachers who staged a sick-out to protest the board. Firing Wise without cause under his contract required Dougco to pay him a year's salary, so now he'll get paid by Dougco and Jeffco. His role as a community superintendent in Jefferson County gives him oversight over a portion of that district, and the role opened up mid-year when a predecessor got promoted.
The Arctic cold will ease its grip on Colorado starting tomorrow. Today, we made it into the mid-teens. Tomorrow, the 20s. But tonight, a storm moving into western Colorado will bring heavy mountain snow and a little light snow to the Front Range. Those bands coming up from the south will drop a quick inch or two of snow just in time for the morning drive. Winter weather and travel advisories are posted for the high country, with wind chill advisories posted on the eastern plains. Skies will clear tomorrow afternoon, but not much of a warm-up, especially with additional snowfall on the pavement. So in Denver for tonight, bitter cold, a low of 1, a little light snow. Tomorrow afternoon sun, a high of 23, getting close to freezing on Friday, and then a warming trend for the weekend, mid-50s, close to 60 for Monday and Tuesday.
Streets of Denver were steaming today, despite the bitter cold. You could see it where the sun was directly shining on the roadway. Meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen says what we're seeing there is the sun's heating up the road surface, and that causes the water on it to evaporate, and then boom, it recondenses into steam because the air is so cold. When survivors escape their traffickers, they're often left with nothing. We can directly help them rebuild their lives in safety. That effort and your feedback next. Voluntad, a nonprofit helping human trafficking survivors across Colorado, has seen a sudden surge in requests for their help last year and this year. So they're the ones who get a call when somebody escapes labor or sex trafficking or is rescued by law enforcement. Voluntad's bilingual staff then steps in to help them, and sometimes their kids, help them find safe housing, new job, mental health support. If you scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491, you can join me in donating. And in this case, our contributions are going directly into a specific fund to help with those immediate needs as survivors and their children rebuild their lives. Eric White writes in tonight, concerned about our coverage of Douglas County schools, saying, "Why are you so involved? Do you live in Douglas County?" I don't. I live in Denver. But I cover Colorado. I cover politics in Colorado. What's happening in Douglas County is now a national story. It's been covered clear up to the New York Times and Fox News. There's allegations of potential impropriety, possible violations of state law, and seismic shifts in the state's third largest school district. We're not going to go away just because some folks don't want us to show you what's happening there. Josh asks which channel the Iceland game is on tonight. It's on ESPN2. Love that everybody's still rooting for Iceland. We'll see you next time.